So, you're an oracle, right?
You seek guidance?
Okay. Which means you can see the future. Yeah?
I see.
Okay. But, you couldn't see that widow mine behind the refinery, huh?
A little late on that one.
The Oracle is the Protoss aerial spellcaster. They can be made from a Stargate with no other tech requirements, and need no additional research for their abilities. They are fast flying and excel in both support and harassment roles. One of the first things that you may notice when you make an Oracle is that the icon for their attack is grayed out. This is because their attack is inherently disabled and is tied to one of their abilities, to be explained in just a moment. The first ability is Revelation. For the low price of 25 energy, your Oracle can reveal your future to you, so long as your future is a group of angry enemy units. Revelation is targeted onto an area and affects all enemy units and structures in that area. The affected enemies are revealed to you for 20 seconds. Even units that are cloaked or burrowed are revealed. It's quite awesome. You will be able to see those targets, see where they are, and even what is near them as well. The second ability is Stasis Ward. This ability has a cost of 50 energy and is also cast at a ground location. After a 4-second channel, the Oracle places a cloaked stasis ward at that targeted spot. The ward will last for 170 seconds, or until an enemy ground unit approaches it. When triggered by an enemy ground unit, the ward will freeze nearby enemies in stasis, and for the next 21 seconds, those units cannot be attacked, but also cannot move. This is excellent for disrupting a group of enemies, making a fight more favorable, or just causing immense emotional damage to your opponent. Surround the frozen units with your own forces and enjoy the carnage. The third ability is Activate Pulsar Beam. This is how you give your oracles their attack. The ability is a toggle ability, meaning you turn it on or off manually with the respective ability. It costs 25 energy plus an additional 2 energy per second when turned on. The attack itself is a rad-looking laser beam that deals 15 damage, or 22 damage versus light units, to ground targets every 0.6 seconds. Since it is best used against light targets, it is highly recommended that you go for the nearest undefended mineral line. Oracles are incredibly fragile units. They are rarely used in a direct engagement, but they are able to offer some valuable support for other Protoss forces. One incredible example of this is the use of Revelation to help out Protoss Tempests. The Tempest can shoot much farther than they can see, so having an Oracle or two to tag Revelation onto the enemy lets the Tempest do its damage much more consistently. When dealing with Oracles, though, the answer does somewhat depend on how they're being used. Let's do a breakdown by spell, and then talk about the ideal units for each faction. Revelation is, without a doubt, the most emotionally damaging spell in the game. There is no worse feeling than knowing that some advanced alien species is creepily watching you not know where to put your Zerglings. You can't really stop the spell, aside from killing the Oracle, I guess. But if you identify that your opponent is favoring Revelation for their scouting, the best solution I have is to spread out. You can split off a group from your main army to try and do run-by attacks, and keep your main army loosely spread so that the revelation does not prevent you from using everything at your disposal. Stasis Ward is a great example of the old "fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me" phrase. Once you recognize the existence of stasis wards, you should immediately start doing two things. One is to get mobile detection. The other is to keep a scouting unit or group of units ahead of your main army. The best case is your mobile detection and some ranged units will be able to kill the stasis before it triggers. If you lack those ranged units though, you just need to try and trigger the ward with as few units as possible. Letting one scouting marine or one zergling get frozen is much better than having to say goodbye to half your army. The pulsar beam ability is the oracle's attack. Since oracles are so fragile, the answer is to have any semblance of anti-air. Whether it's a pack of hydras in your army or a missile turret in your mineral line, depends on the situation. Now let's talk about some units that are great versus oracles. Terran players, Stim Marines absolutely destroy oracles, but there are some alternatives that you might want to consider to free up your Marines to bully other targets. Setting up a Widow Mine or two to cover your worker lines is a great way to both passively deny the oracles and ruin the Protoss day. Another excellent option though is the Viking. The Viking's long range allows for easy zoning away of oracles, plus an extra benefit here, Vikings are great against Colossi as well. Protoss. As with most things, a group of Blink Stalkers is the go-to for your early defense. That does not change with oracles. As the game progresses, cannons and batteries can protect mineral lines easily, and you can instead focus on zoning away the oracles. Blink Stalkers and Archons always perform well, but don't be afraid to dip into Stargate tech as well. Oracles cannot shoot up, and stasis wards only affect ground units, so your Void Rays or your Tempests or other air units are only susceptible to the emotional damage. Zerg players, similar to Protoss, you know that a handful of queens or a single spore can keep your bases locked down. When going on the offensive though, the most important thing to be aware of is the presence of stasis wards. Since Zerg relies so heavily on numbers and getting a surround, stasis wards tend to be much more common in the matchup. Keep a few Zerglings or Roaches ahead of your main army to try and prevent any disasters. You can also get a few Overseers to keep with your army to try and spot or snipe off those stasis wards before they become a problem. The Oracles themselves die quite easily to Hydralisks, Corruptors, Mutas, or even a parasitic bomb from a Viper, so it's probably best to say that you should focus on what else the Protoss is building. Oracles can be a surprisingly helpful addition to any standard Protoss army, whether it's for Revelation's vision and detection, Stasis Ward's disruption and control, or the epic anti-worker green laser beam. Oracles can be helpful. How do you feel about them? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.